I will say that one of the challenges that companies have is kind of going back to everyone gets rah about creating the vision and all of that, and then even creating the process. You can get a little rah about it as well. But following the process and sticking to it, that can be difficult, and that is where you have to make it a habit. We do a lot on quarterly systems. And so, one of the things that we'll do is we'll have this is our main goal this quarter. And sometimes I'll get pushback and somebody will go, but shouldn't that just be somebody's job? Shouldn't that just be why does that have to be their goal this quarter? And I always go, it's not a habit. And until it's a habit, it's got to be a goal that we really focus on. And then once it becomes something that we're doing so regularly that we don't have to say it anymore, that's when we know that we're following the process and we're getting the results that we want to. I would say that just creating the process is not enough. You have to actually follow through and put those mechanisms in to be able to get that structure that you need to know what you're doing and hit your goals, hopefully week over week, month over month, quarter over quarter, year over year.
That was marketing expert Austin LaRoche sharing with us the importance of structure when it comes to our marketing behavior. We don't want to do random acts of marketing, but in fact, have a structure and a plan. And that's what we talk about in this episode of the Star Coach Show. Hello, welcome to the show. I'm delighted to have you here. We have a great show for you today. And it's a timely show because it is talking about the importance of having a plan, having structure when we engage in our marketing. We really need to have a plan, a foundation for anything that we build our business on. And my guest today is going to help us understand different buckets of purpose that our marketing goes into so that you can have a better intention when it comes to what you're doing for marketing to get the kinds of results you want. So we're definitely going to get a lot of great information. I'll tell you more about our guest in just a minute. I'm Meg Rentschler. I am the host of the show. And as we are entering into February, 1 month down already from 2024, I would encourage you to be thinking about, are you just randomly being kind of bopped around by the waves of life and just responding to what's being kind of impacting you and in front of you? Or are you making a plan and intention? I want you to get out of the waves and being bopped around and actually get into the boat and navigate your course forward. And that's why we do the Star Coach Show, to give you the kinds of tools and strategies and resources you need to thrive in whatever you're doing in your life. And definitely, if you're a coach who is working with people within a company, you still need to have a brand and a plan. If you're a coach who is building your own business, an entrepreneur, or maybe even working in an organization that offers coaching as one of their coaches, all of these things we still need to think about. How are we building our skills? How are we getting our identity out there in the way of brand and business? And how are we changing organizations, helping leaders thrive, helping employees feel valued and empowered? That's what we do. I'm excited and really honored to continue on this path with you, where we talk about these important things each and every week. So this week, we're really looking at our business foundation, the kinds of things that we do to scale our businesses, to get our initial footing if need be, and then scale thereafter. And so I've got a perfect guest for you today. I am visiting with Austin LaRoche, who is the CEO of ATAK Interactive, and he's the creator of M2S, which is marketing to sales. It's a framework that is a growth system that really synchronizes strategy and execution in a simple, pragmatic plan for business owners. And so I asked Austin to join us today so that we could talk about entrepreneurs. We are in a place of needing to get our message out, needing to have a plan around marketing. And while Austin's company usually does business to business marketing plans, we are, even as, maybe business to consumer, for those of you who are directly targeting people who are going to engage with you specifically and buy their own coaching from you, or if you're looking toward working with organizations and how am I going to get in front of decision makers, we're talking about how do we market in such a way to make those kinds of things happen. Austin himself is an entrepreneur, but he has a passion of helping other business owners see their vision come to light. And we're going to be talking about vision in the interview today. His company motto is Strength and Structure, where he and his team watch their clients grow from those random acts of marketing into an organized operation that really can measure and optimize success at every stage of their journey. And so that's what we're looking at today. I asked Austin to give you some specific examples of things that you can do. And I believe that by the end of this interview, you're going to have some more ideas of, do I have a plan? What bucket are my different activities going in? Do I know the purpose? Because if we don't know the purpose, we're not as intentional as we need to be. So let's go to my interview with Austin. Austin LaRoche, welcome to the Star Coach Show.
Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to have you. So, at the Star Coach Show, we've got different kinds of shows. And one of the kinds of shows that I think is so needed is the foundational aspects of how do we create the kind of structure that helps us be successful. Because if we want to get our coaching into the world, we need to have something that supports us, a business that supports us. We need to do marketing, but before we can even get to marketing, we need to have some kind of a structure, some foundational elements. And we're going to talk about all of that today. So put on your seatbelts, everybody. We got a lot going on. Austin, what is it that you enjoy about working with businesses to get these elements in place so that they can be successful?
Well, I feel like every business owner or, let's just say decision maker, everybody's got a vision, right? And having a vision is super important. And it's one of those things that, it comes very natural to me. So I didn't realize that it's not necessarily the same for everybody else. So when people have a vision, they have this, I always say that they have the promised land. I always ask them, paint the promised land, paint it for me. And sometimes it's murky and I have to kind of, go in there and grab the paintbrush and help them do the strokes a little bit. But ultimately, I think people have somewhat of an idea of how to get to the promised land or what the promised land looks like. And that is where the gap is, and where I'd love to come in is being able to create the process and the structure they need to get there. So we do that mostly through a marketing and sales lens. And our consultative approach really, we try and break things down, right? I was speaking with somebody recently, and we were talking about marketing, and he had hired a outsourced CMO a couple months back, and they'd been working together about 6 months. And right now we're like working on our message, and we're really kind of trying to hone that in. And I was like, wait, like 6 months? Like it's at some point you got.
We're still trying to hone, yeah.
Yeah, right. Like, whoa, wait a minute. And I get it, right? Especially on the B2C side, there are a lot of people who really want to make sure that brand is everything that they want it to be as perfect as possible. I would say on the B2B side and just working with me, part of that is we try and make quicker decisions because we definitely believe that even though we come up with some of the best communication known to man, we're going to A/B test that. And we're going to let data tell us how our audience is reacting to it before we just go in and say, this is the way, this is the message, this is exactly how we're going to put it.
I love that. Let me interrupt you for just a second, because I want everybody to hear a couple things that Austin said. A, anybody who's confused. B, to C is your business directly to a consumer or to the customer. B to B is if your business markets to another business, and that you don't just kind of dream it up and then put it out there. You are using data to drive the decisions. And I just wanted everybody to kind of hear that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So when we first, the first question you asked before I started going all over the place, because that sometimes I'm a excited golden retriever like that, is how we set that foundation. I really feel like there's four elements, and the first one I mentioned was vision, right? Helping people hone that. What does that promised land look like? What and maybe that's a 5, 10 years out promised land. What does 1 year look like, right? And then going into those goals and making sure we understand what it is we're trying to do. And then the next one is communications. And man, you can pay a comms firm a lot of money to build a lot of different types of comms. But at the end of the day, it's really trying to break it down and simplify it. What are your value propositions? What is it that what's the change that you're bringing to your target market? If your target market has their own version of a promised land, which is where they want to go, how are you or your product or your service going to help them get there? And how do we just articulate that in a very simple, clear, and concise way? So we try and simplify comms in that regard. Then we want to look at the data, okay, and the important data. Because if you've ever worked with any sort of marketing or PR agency, you know that we can have fun with numbers and we can make something look really, really impressive. That's not, oh my gosh, just got 1 million impressions. Great. Nobody clicked on it. Nobody converted. No money was made, but you got 1 million impressions, right? And so we really want to make sure we identify the metrics that do matter. So on the B2C side, a lot of times that's retail. So you're looking at straight dollars and cents, right? Especially in the digital side, and e-commerce store is much more interested in their sales than they are their email subscription signups. Whereas on the B2B side, many times filling out a form or scheduling a meeting is the first step in having a conversation that's going to take a longer sales cycle to be able to make that sort of money. So we want to understand what's important, right? Is web traffic important? Are form fills important? Calendar fills? What are those important metrics that we really want to track week over week, and then identify what our weekly goals should be if they're going to hit our annual goals. So we want to break down that data so we know what we're playing with. And then lastly, we want to break down our buyer personas. And so ideally, we don't have any more than 3, because if you have too many market segments, it can be really, really cumbersome. But some companies, can be that exception. But we want to break down those buyer personas and recognize what makes each of your different customer types unique. So what are their desires? What are their pain points? What are their tendencies? How should we approach each of them? And so we build all of those things out. And here we are in this bucket, and we've got the foundational elements. Great. And I think that a lot of companies can do that. And everyone gets really excited because ideating this stuff is fun. It's fun, right? Talking about where we want to go and envisioning ourselves, making millions and millions is great. Talking about, what we stand for and how we're going to communicate is great. And who we're going to go after, really identifying that target market and knowing the numbers we got to hit, like everyone can rally around. But then you have to show up the next day and start working towards the goal. And I think a lot of people get lost there. And that's the next part of the structure that we really try to simplify. And so this is definitely more skewed towards the business to business companies, but we just put all of the marketing. So what we do is we take each of those buyer personas or your customer segments, right? So, we take those and we say, for this person, how do we attract them as a prospect? How do we convert them as a prospect into an opportunity? How do we close them from an opportunity to a customer? And then how do we delight them as a customer? So we go into those 4 buckets, and that's when we start getting tactical, right? Okay, we know where we want to go. We know who these people are. So what are we going to do? What are we going to invest in? Are we going to invest more in a sales approach and have companies cold calling our target audience? God, I hope not. Are we going to try and inbound leads with via SEO or paid search or even paid social? Are we going to try and build strategic partnerships and try and get co-market to get in front of some of the right people? Are we going to educate with webinars and even try to invigorate our current database? What are we going to do to attract these prospects? And then we identify the creative approach, and then we identify any KPIs that we're looking at in each of these 4 buckets. So it takes us through the entire sales cycle. Sorry, that was a lot.
That was a lot. So one of the things I want to kind of wind back, I know that you said this, and I know that your business focus tends to be business to business, but based upon what you said, Austin, I want the audience to hear also that those buckets that you're talking about and the decisions that you're talking about make sense what if you are going towards a particular avatar or a particular kind of client that you work with. You still need to identify what are their pain points, where do they hang out, are you more likely to connect with them through social media? Are you more likely to connect with them through speaking engagements? Are you more likely to connect with them through, reaching a decision maker in an organization because you want to be able to go into the organization and work with the leadership team or the whole. So all those things that you talk about, even though your company sort of business to business is them, I heard value in every single one of those, even if an audience member is saying, but I'm sort of my business directly to the consumer. I totally get that what you're talking about would be valuable there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It actually is the same process. It's just one of the steps happens a lot longer on the B2B side than the B2C side. So, and that's essentially converting them into an opportunity because let's say you go into a retail store, right? You want some clothes. So you've been attracted because you drove down the street and you saw the sign of the building and that looked cool. Okay. So then, the right day comes and they walk in and then a salesperson, so we've now converted them. They're in the store. Our cool sign worked. And now a salesperson comes up and asks them if they want anything. And perhaps they engage, perhaps they don't. They try it on, they buy, you get their email when they buy, and then you send them an email, seems like every single day from retail,
I
until
hear
they
you.
have time to pitch them to come back. And so it is a similar process. I would say a lot of times on the digital side, especially with e-com, you go from I've never heard of this company to I'm buying a product in about 3 minutes because of an Instagram ad. Whereas, some
Right.
sales cycles with some of the larger B2B companies can take up to 3 years. So
Right.
it's
You're exactly right. And so I
yeah,
would say for coaches, it tends to be more of we definitely have to build that know, like, trust factor, getting our message out, inviting people into a form, maybe to download a
an
free
asset. Yep.
giveaway or some kind of. So our asks tend to be, would you like to have a complimentary session to experience coaching? That might be something that a coach would offer, or downloading something of value, or inviting them to a free webinar or something that once again builds that connection. And then we've got the whole audience that are listening who really want to get in front of decision makers in organizations or be able to facilitate and grow their business inside of organizations by training and working with leadership teams and those kinds of things. And I think that in many ways that cycle could be like, a 3-year cycle and those kinds of things. So just a
Yeah,
little bit taking all the things that you said and sort of applying it to what I know people who are listening are doing.
absolutely. I mean, I think coaches, it's funny that whole cycle. I feel like with coaches, it's that delighting the customer ends up
Yes.
becoming a major lead gen tool because I know for myself and my company, we had a coach who I absolutely loved, and he was part of a system that's known as EOS, and he's fantastic. I mean, one of his goals, though, as he joked when he pitched us, was I want you to fire me in a few years. Like I want you
I always
to
say to my clients, if I'm doing my job, I'm working my way out of a job with you.
right. Yeah. So he did, and I just felt like so indebted to him and all the just the growth that he provided for me and my business partner. And so anytime I hear someone's interested, I'm like, oh, you got to talk to Mike. You got to talk to Mike. He's the guy. Because I love him. I feel that amount of gratitude. And so it's something like, again, every business is different, but I can totally see where great coaches because you deliver these transformative experiences, right?
Ideally, yeah.
Right. It is I mean, talk about a job where you take people to the promised land, right? Like everybody wants to go somewhere, and it's like you are directly hired to help me get where I want to go. And when you do that, and it's so impactful. And plus when you with different business owners, typically they're in different networks with other business owners, and everybody
Right.
wants to help everybody out. So it's really interesting how lead gen definitely fluctuates through different industries.
Right. And so yet we still have that structure that we all need, regardless of the kind of business that we have. And when you're talking about the things what are some of the things that you share with your customers about how they delight their customers? Like, how do you get clear about delighting?
I mean, I think that delight, it kind of comes down to two things, right? It's either educational or experiential, and like there's those can definitely vary in different ways. But if you're, for instance, I'll give you a great example. My coach, once everything started shutting down in the pandemic, he gave me a call one day. He said, "How are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, we're good. We're a digital agency. We're going to be all right." And everyone's taking money from their event budget and throwing it to digital. We'll be fine. But he just called me out of the blue, and he just started giving me all of this advice of what other companies do when there's like a downshift. And luckily, there wasn't a downshift, but like it just came out of nowhere. And because he knew we were in a position where, oh my gosh, like we might be facing something we've never faced before,
Right.
And it's like that surprise and delight kind of feeling.
And
So like,
being proactive and not waiting for you to reach out to him, but saying, "How are you doing? We're in a global pandemic right now."
absolutely. So I mean, that's a simple answer of like educate.
Mhm.
An example of experiential, is very much what a lot of people are doing right now this holiday season. You're on the list. You're getting the gifts. The gifts give you value. They make you feel good. They make you feel like the business is valued. So I mean, and that's a small example, right? You can take customers out to dinner. When you hit certain milestones,
Mhm.
I've found that, like, I think that there's like and I'm gonna say something. I feel like it's so easy to ideate ways to delight customers, and it's a really hard thing to follow through on because nobody like because your livelihood doesn't depend on it, right? Your livelihood doesn't depend. Your livelihood depends on continuing to grow your business, get more customers. But even like like you said, if your goal is to not have to be there a few years from now, I don't. Think about a client you haven't talked to in 2 years, but you had a transformative experience. If you just send them something 2 years or 5 years after you started with them and said, "Wow, this is our 5 year anniversary of working together. I love those days. Thanks so much. I hope all is well." Like that would be so impactful. That would delight that
Right.
company, right? And because I think of it all the time. I'm like, oh, customer anniversaries. We should be celebrating those more, especially like people who've been there longer. And then it's just all the things that get in the way. And what kind of gift? We'll get them a book. And depending on who they are, we'll get them a book that will matter to them. Who's going to be responsible for that?
Right.
And then like a lot of ideas, they go all over the place. And that's why, again, going back to structure, when you make it pragmatic and you make it part of the system, this is how we're attracting, this is how we're converting, this is how we're closing, this is how we're delighting, this is the process,
Love
then it
that.
doesn't become so hard because it's not an idea. It's
Or
the
it's not just spinning around and not without any place to land. You're sort of like, this is part of our process, and this is the way that we do that process. I love that, Austin. Love that.
it's a lot of fun.
We'll return to my interview with Austin right after this message. Let's take a moment to focus on our intention around professional development and growth. It is a responsibility that we have as a professional to continue to grow and stretch and learn. And a great way to do that is through mentor coaching. Mentor coaching is a requirement for coach credentialing. It's also a requirement for ACC renewal of credential and must extend over a minimum of 3 months. So it's one of those things you really want to plan out. It happens to be a great way to earn core competency continuing education credits, which is something that we all need. I've just set the dates for my final 2 mentor programs for 2024. And I wanted to share that with you because I encourage you to be intentional about how you are earning continuing education and strengthening your skill set. And mentor coaching is my favorite way to work with coaches to do exactly that. Imagine getting focused time with a small group of like-minded professionals, zeroing in on the coach partnership and our skills, getting one-on-one mentoring around the specific things that you want to grow in. And like I said, earning those core competency credits along the way. Now, I have 2 remaining groups, as I said, for 2024, and they're already filling. So if you'd like to know more about the process, explore it at starcoachshow.com/mentor, starcoachshow.com/mentor. And if you enroll in one of my upcoming spring or fall programs, I've got a special gift for you to keep you engaged during those months while you're waiting for those programs to begin. Check it out and let me know. And now let's get back to the show. So what else do is important to put those blocks together and to make a flow occur so that it's not just, oh yeah, and that, oh, and that, which is the way that I think some of us operate when we're without structure.
Absolutely. So, I'm not the first person to say this, but a lot of us out there are really trying to stop what we call the random acts of marketing, which is essentially the ideas we have that we kind of like act on. We hear something. I started in social media in 2008. So like I'm like 15 years into this. And I can't tell you all the times a small business heard about another business that was really social media savvy on the newest and latest thing. Like, let's pay somebody to do that for us. And it's like, no, that company did it because they were authentic. They could speak to people on that platform that were their target market, and they could persuade them. Okay. So it's really trying to help people understand, based on who they are and their authentic voice, what it is that they're going to be able to do to actually make marketing move the needle to sales. Right. And so anytime anybody has an idea, I challenge it, not in a bad way, but it's like,
challenge is important.
What if we do this? Great. Where does that go? Are we going to be attracting, converting, closing, or delighting because of that? And social media is a great example because I hear people all the time like, oh, I could use LinkedIn more. Okay, great. That can be very impactful. How do you want to use it? I don't know. I just see these people posting all the time. And what we could do is we just hired somebody right out of college, and they can just do a post in my account like every day, right? Good. It's going to be interesting. Well, I mean, I'm sure they can come up with something. I'm sure they could come up with something, and it won't be very interesting. Thought leadership does require the leader to be the one to have the thoughts. So
Amazing.
then it kind of says, then you kind of go, okay, let's say you really do want to utilize this. Okay. All right. That you're connected to your network. So if you're out there and you're putting out valuable content on your personal LinkedIn, at a very minimum, that should be a part of the delight process. Now, if you're lucky and your customers like what you're saying, maybe they'll tag somebody in one of your posts if it's relevant to them that you haven't met before. Maybe they will share it and they will put it in their timeline to somebody who needs it at the exact moment. I think that happens from time to time, but I don't think that it's necessarily the best use case of how to attract a prospect. I would say sales organizations, anybody in a sales organization right now would be screaming like, no, use LinkedIn to connect with people. Authentic messages, you can connect with 20 people a day or whatever it is at this point. And I mean, we all have those. I'm sure your inbox is full every day of a bunch of people you don't know who, hey, I just want to.
I know that you want to work with me. I don't know you. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
I'm not saying that it can't work. I'm just saying that there's a lot more authentic ways that we try and get people to do that.
So can
But
you
at the
give
same
some examples of more authentic ways to connect? Or
time,
to so you're talking about what doesn't make sense. Let's talk
yeah,
about what does make sense.
it's a great question. Somebody posed this to me on a podcast right before we hopped on a couple weeks ago. Said, "What are you doing this for?" And I was like, "Well, my company went virtual during the pandemic, as a lot of people did, and back in the day, I would go to a lot of these local events to try and meet like-minded people and just see what was out there and what smart people were doing and whatnot. And that still exists a little bit, but I got two kids and I got all this stuff and you know what? I kind of found just hopping on really interesting people's podcasts has been a really awesome way to make authentic connections, right? Like especially if like I'm here to get some value to learn a little bit about the coaching world, and hopefully I'm providing a little bit of value in how to structure marketing efforts. And after this, we are now linked on we're on LinkedIn together, and that's an authentic connection. And
Hmm.
maybe I see something that you post that is going to be helpful for one of my clients, or maybe you see something that I post that might be helpful for one of your clients. And that's an authentic way to make real connections and relationships. Now, not everybody wants to be on a podcast, but just taking that example, at no
Right.
point did I have any expectation of coming here and chatting with you. And I don't think you had any expectation chatting with me that one day we're going to do business together.
Right.
But
Or that, I'm just going to sell, sell, sell. I mean, that's not, you want to come here and make a connection with people by giving them value.
yeah, absolutely. And so I would say any connection that you can make that provides value is what is going to be the type of networking that you're going to want to do. And maybe I know for a lot of coaches too, that you still have the local play. I hope I miss a lot of local. I'm not going to lie. Like I like the flexibility of the remote world. But I'm an extrovert. So I often do find myself going to lunch and just talking to the waiter. On a random Wednesday. But no, I think what you're saying is right. I mean, making real connections, and I always think it's if there's somebody that you want a connection to, a great way to look is to see if you have any like mutual connections, and to be able to
Hmm.
say, hey, let me know about this person. Let me know about this person because it seems like somebody I'd like to get to know, but at the same time, I don't want to bother them with a cold email or say, oh, hey, I see you know Bob. It's like, hey, ask Bob, would you be willing to make an intro? And a lot of times people are willing to do that as long as it's, again, comes from an authentic and earnest place. And I think a lot of times if we get the word sell and we cross it out and we put help instead,
Right.
and we want to just help people are willing to listen on how they can be helped, as long as it's not overtly a sale, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. And I'm wondering, because you do so much business to business, whether that is one of the ways that your customers have gotten in front of organizations, because it's not easy to, like you said, it could be a 3-year process of nurturing and engaging to get in front of decision makers or to have an organization sign on the dotted line to do business together. So what are some of the things that your customers have done to market to businesses versus marketing directly to the consumer that have been successful? And one of the things we said is authentically sort of getting your word and your message out there. What else?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that digital marketing tactics such as SEO and paid search work really well. It will be interesting to see how that is disrupted over the next 5 years with some of the AI tools that are already being incorporated. But at the end of the day, that's marketing to a need, right?
Hmm.
So you are marketing to people. You have what other people need, and you're marketing to them via search. And so I think a lot of people will invest in them, and it can get costly in certain ways. But if you go back and your data and you understand what your ROI looks like, you know how much you can spend to acquire a new customer because you understand the lifetime value of your customer. I think when it comes to messaging, one of the
Hmm.
things that I've helped people with is to take a simplified version of this concept of story brand. So Story Brand was a book that came out a couple years
Great
ago.
book.
Yeah, it is. And now it's like this overdone thing where they've got these consultants that you spend way too much money. I had a friend, she's a business owner, and she was like, hey, has anyone does Story Brand? Like, I think I'm hiring a consultant. And I was like, no, 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 no. We're going to be on a retreat and a month from now. We will story brand your company in 20 minutes by time we and sure enough, we did. And so the simple version of it is just looking at it through this lens. Everybody used to say, we got to tell our story. Nobody cares about your story because everybody's a hero in their own autobiography, right?
Right.
So you look at your customer and you recognize that they are the hero in their story. And going back to my favorite that phrase, they've got a version of the promised land. Okay. And so your marketing, the way you talk, should be about how you help them get where they want to go instead of who you are and why you are great. It's more
Love that.
help, right? It's help. And I think looking at it through that lens. So if you're a coach, for example, instead of like, oh, I've been doing this for 35 years. I've seen all these systems, and yet, great, cool. I just told you my issue. I told you where I want to go and what's holding me back. Help me understand how through your guidance we're going to get there, and then maybe sprinkle in some social proof. Tell me how a similar company that you've worked with did the exact same, or help me understand some different avenues towards getting there that maybe I don't currently know. So I think there's a lot of different things people can do. It starts with an authentic message, but when we talk about like really persuading people, a lot of times it's having that social proof. I mean, just as simple as having good reviews on your Google My Business or Yelp account, depending on what type of company.
Or LinkedIn. Yeah. Having
Right?
great recommendations. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so I know any marketplace that we are in, we do a lot. Our company does a lot with technology, particularly with HubSpot as well, which is a great tool to organize all marketing and sales efforts. But within that marketplace, we always ask any customer who's had a positive experience to review, and we've got a lot of different people who come to us because they've looked at that marketplace and thought, wow, we want a highly regarded agency. So anything that you can do to get your name in a place where people are talking about you in a positive way, so that because we're all going to say we're the best. Not that we're the best, that we're impactful, right? We're all impactful.
We're going to do it.
But when somebody else talks about how impactful you were for them, it's so much more powerful. Think about it as like going to a party, right? You show up and you're like, I'm the best, I'm the coolest. Hi, how are you? I'm awesome. That's great. But somebody goes, wait, who's that across the way who's talking way too much? Oh, that's Austin. He's actually pretty nice. It just goes a little longer.
Or you walk in and everybody goes, oh,
yeah, the little Norm from Cheers.
Yes.
There we go.
Yes. I love that. So being intentional about asking for those testimonials or reviews and then letting them speak for you. I love that, Austin, because really, who wants to listen to somebody go on and on about how much impact they've had versus being able to listen to what other people have said about how awesome it is to work with you.
And there's a lot of different ways to do that. I was recently recently signed up with a vendor who I loved. His social proof was his company's social proof. He had his happy client with video testimonials, and there was like a lot of them. And I was like the sixth one, and I was like, sounds like this is actually pretty impactful. So I'm in. Like I'm in. I like that. I thought it was a really good touch. That might be a cool little tip for you listening out there to especially if you're in person. And again, everyone gets really scared with video. You don't have to. These iPhones are awesome. They're awesome. Put it on cinematic mode. If you have one of the newer ones, ask a friend if you don't, and just put it on there. Get them to say something really nice about you. I swear, it doesn't have to be hard. There's so many ways that we can simplify marketing.
Love, love, love that. I can't believe that our time is already coming almost to a close. So I want to circle back around to make sure that we have touched and you've given such great information, but that structure brings freedom. Structure brings value because when you have those foundational aspects, you're not spinning and running around like a chicken with your head cut off you know what you're doing. I want you to say your 4 buckets again because they're so impactful. Does it go in this bucket, this bucket, this bucket, or this bucket? So let's give you 4.
Are you marketing to attract the prospect, or to convert the prospect to an opportunity, to close the opportunity into a customer, or to delight the customer? Because what you're doing should fit into one of those buckets, if not multiple ones.
Excellent. Anything else that we've left on the table? I mean, obviously, we could talk for days, but anything key as a sort of a closing thought that you would like to share today?
I will say that one of the challenges that companies have is going back to everyone gets rah about creating the vision and all of that, and then even creating the process. You can get a little rah about it as well, but following the process and sticking to it, that can be difficult, and that is where you have to make it a habit. We do a lot on quarterly systems. And so, one of the things that we'll do is we'll have this is our main goal this quarter. And sometimes I'll get pushback and somebody will go, but shouldn't that just be somebody's job? Shouldn't that just be why does that have to be their goal this quarter? And I always go, it's not a habit yet. And until it's a habit, it's got to be a goal that we really focus on. And then once it becomes something that we're doing so regularly that we don't have to say it anymore, that's when we know that we're following the process and we're getting the results that we want to. I would say that just creating the process is not enough. You have to actually follow through and put those mechanisms in to be able to get that structure that you need to know what you're doing and hit your goals, hopefully week over week, month over month, quarter over quarter, year over year.
Love it. Austin, thank you so much for bringing your expertise to the Star Coach Show. It has been delightful to spend time with you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Meg. This was a blast.
Okay, are you thinking about your buckets and what buckets you need to pay attention to? Thank you to Austin LaRoche for giving us this insight into our marketing and help create a firmer foundation for what we are building upon as business owners. If you want to know more about Austin and the work he does, go to starcoachshow.com/376, starcoachshow.com/376, and grab the links to connect with him. Or if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, grab the links below this video. My conversation with Austin continues in the Star Coach community, where you can get extra special content from every one of our amazing guests, as well as 4 live events a month for a very nominal fee. Think about what focusing in on your coaching 1 hour a week would do to expand your confidence, your competence, and your community. Check it out at starcoachshow.com/community, starcoachshow.com/community. Next week, I'm going solo. I love my solo shows with you to share some insight or perspective that I have learned over my years of being an executive coach, a mentor coach, a coach instructor. So come back next week so we can have some one-on-one time together. Until next week, this is Meg Rentschler, wishing you the very best for your coaching success. Have an awesome week.